We are WCPN, Idea Stream Public Media.
This is Science Friday, and I'm Sophie Bushwick. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Darren Naish, paleontologist and talking about the science behind famous cryptid sightings. And we have a question about faked evidence from Lara in Santa Clara, California.
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm wondering, what's the best faked evidence for a cryptid that you've heard of?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question because there's quite a few. So I'm going to tell you about my favourite photo, my favourite indisputable hoax, and it's the Robert Laceric 1964 Cook Island sea monster photo. So you probably haven't heard of this one, but it's the best sea monster photo ever taken. I say photo, it's not a photo, it's actually a sequence of photos. So in 1964, a French man named Robert Laceric went on vacation with his family and his friend Peg Jean to Hook Island, which is part of Queensland, Australia. And in Stonehaven Bay, Hook Island, Laceric said that they all discovered this gigantic tadpole-shaped monster resting in the lagoon. And if you use your favourite internet search engine, just do Hook Island sea monster, you'll see photographs of this immense, very dark tadpole-shaped monster sat at the bottom of the lagoon with a person and a little boat behind it. And like I say, it's part of a sequence. They approach quite closely to this creature. They look down on its head from above. You can see it's got two little pale eyes. They said that at the base of its tail there was a big white scrape, and they reckoned it had suffered from a collision with a ship and it was resting in the lagoon. Laceric and John supposedly dove and went up close to the creature underwater, and it opened its mouth and swam towards them, and so they retreated. And the photos they're just great. I mean, they really look like photos of a real sea monster. There's a prominent person in the history of cryptozoology called Dr. Bernard Heuvelmans. He was the guy who wrote the sort of pioneering volumes on the subject, mostly during the 1950s, died in 2001. And he was based in France. And for his 1968 book, In the Wake of Sea Serpents, he found out as much as he could about Laceric because he was really interested in this Hook Island sea monster story. And now this is a case where how much circumstantial evidence do you need to be convinced of something? Heuvelmans found that Laceric was regarded by everyone that he was sort of involved with and knew as kind of an untrustworthy character. He left various unpaid debts. He was wanted by Interpol. So on the one hand, you can say, well, being a shady character doesn't stop you from encountering a real sea monster. But Laceric told people before leaving France that he was going to go away and make money from a hoax involving a sea monster. And I think that's slightly suspicious. Just a
little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So on that basis, Heuvelmans concluded that it probably was a hoax. So did Heuvelmans' mentor and friend Ivan D. Sanderson, who also wrote widely about mystery animals. And they both tried to come up with various explanations as to how it could have been hoaxed. And what's most likely is that they used some kind of like giant plastic sheeting or giant bag-like structure that you could tow along and make it look kind of like a tadpole shape.
Let's move from back onto land and talk about possibly the most famous cryptid here in the U.S., Bigfoot. So, similar to the Loch Ness Monster, one of the most famous pieces of quote-unquote evidence that exists is this old video of what looks like some sort of ape walking in the forest. And many skeptics think that this video was completely faked. What's your take on the Bigfoot tape?
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me when to stop talking because, again, there's whole books written about this. So Sophie is describing there the Patterson film, sometimes called the Patterson film or the PGU film. It was supposedly taken on October 20th, 1967. So we just celebrated the 54th anniversary of when they're supposed to have filmed it. So this was at Bluff Creek in California. Roger Patterson and Bob Giblin specifically went to Bluff Creek because of like Bigfoot activity that was supposed to have happened, there beforehand. So Northern California is meant to be one of the hotspots for Bigfoot. So their story is they were specifically looking for Bigfoot. They're on their horses. They walk into Bluff Creek alongside the creek of Bluff Creek, and squatting at the side, possibly drinking, they see an obviously female Bigfoot who stands up and strides like from left to right, and just keeps walking. She just keeps going. Patterson, according to some accounts, his horse or pony was scared, and his horse reared, and Patterson fell off. But he managed to get the camera. We know exactly what kind of camera he used. A huge amount of research has been done on the camera and its frame rate, which is something that's very important to how the object in the film looks. And he recorded about a minute of footage of this creature, affectionately known as Patty to people in the Bigfoot community. And I'm sure most of you know the footage. In particular, you probably know frame 352, which is the famous shot where she's striding with her legs, arms even. Iconic bit of Americana, really. So among those people that are quite committed to the existence of Bigfoot, the Patterson Film is one of the best bits of evidence we have. And there are people that include qualified primatologists, anthropologists, people that are experts in movement and stuff. They have actually said that this doesn't have the proportions of a human. Its arms are longer than those of humans. Its head to total height ratio is slightly different from that of humans. Aspects of its musculature, the movement of its pelt, and various other of its parts look absolutely accurate. Its gait is not like that of a human. It's walking with a compliant gait, which means it's bending its knees in a certain way, and it's not a particular kind of stride that's different from our species. That's the kind of pro-Bigfoot stance. Now, on the other side of things, the skeptical side of things, and the sort of way I've tended to lean in my more recent writings, because I've flipped and flopped on this footage, I've been very inconsistent on this. My current thinking is that a lot of the things that are said to be compelling and anatomically interesting about it could actually be faked by a person moving in a particular way. So things like walking with a compliant gait, moving with bent limbs and swinging your arms a lot and stuff. A person can do that. This claim about the proportions being utterly different from Homo sapiens is not true. The proportions are not that different from us. And we've got this massive amount of circumstantial data compiled by an author called Greg Long, who wrote a book called The Making of Bigfoot. I think it was published in 2004. Not a very fun read. I didn't like the book at all. But he does a really good job of showing that this is an important thing for a lot of these cryptozoological stories. Roger Patterson is not just some guy with a camera. He's not a guy who goes into the woods and, there's Bigfoot, and gets on film. He's someone who's got years and years of background of being obsessed with Bigfoot, and specifically of drawing Bigfoot, building life-size Bigfoot illustrations, and of basically using Bigfoot as a way of making money. In a book that he published in 1966, that's a year before he made this film, Patterson drew the William Roe encounter from the late 50s. So William Roe is this guy who in Canada claims that he observes an obviously female Bigfoot in a forest clearing.
Oh, Todd Rundgren. Hello.
And stands up and strides across the clearing.
Yeah, we're going to have days. We've had days of rain.
A very distinctively proportioned Bigfoot. And Patterson drew his take.
Thanks, Pablo.
The Roe encounter in 66.
Fuck. So anyway, I got in some big trouble after my Chicago delivery because I didn't get back quickly because I got very distracted and tired and slept, and these are things that business owners don't really want to understand. So I didn't make a penny from that trip because I'm being penalized. I can still deliver for them, but I cannot use one of their vehicles anymore. So now I'm pretty screwed with trying to pay my house bill by the end of the month, which is Sunday. I'm fucked. So while I was there, one of the dispatchers said, well, we got a delivery on the east side if you think you can go do it. So I'm trying to get over there. Couldn't even start the delivery properly. I went to get on the highway and the damn ramp was closed. Had to turn around, futz around to get to another ramp. Oh, fuck. Things are not good. Well, they want it back right away. Yeah, they always assume you're going to come back right away. You know, or within some reasonable amount of time, you know. But I got very distracted and lost and slept a lot. And these are things that people who don't really know you don't want to understand. And even if they do know you, they don't want to deal with it. So I have started looking for a psychiatrist to go see because I've got the shit's biting me badly, you know. I've been very distracted lately. I cannot focus at all. So, and I can't argue with them to get paid because I messed up, and they'll still give me work, but not with their vehicle, so that hurts because that would have been a few $100s. When I don't have literally two $5 bills to rub together. Let's get over here. It's National Cat Day. Hell with the breadsticks. Where am I going here? Got a couple more exits I need to pass. Big addition to that. They're more than doubling the size of this hospital. Wow. Well, maybe not doubling it, but big addition. Yeah, well, who cares about breadsticks? I know. What is this car doing? Heater controls aren't working properly. Acting flaky.
both things. It's like a lot of cryptozoologists are perfectly sensible, even pro-science people, even qualified scientists, and then there are others who are the opposite of that. So there isn't a simple answer.
That's about all the time we have for now. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Darren Naish, paleontologist and author based in Southampton in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great fun.
Some of the lore around cryptids comes from people mistaking something that's pretty common for something that's pretty spooky. And over the next few minutes, I wouldn't blame you if you or your pets thought ghosts were coming out of your radio. Here is a special Halloween soundscape from producers Chris Hoff and Sam Harnett of the World According to Sound podcast.
These are Iberian wolves, recorded in Portugal by Melissa Pons. She's released an entire album of the soundscapes created by these wolves.
Traffic. It's pretty wild sounding, those wolves, huh? How bad is this gonna be up here? These cars should turn right up here, not go straight. Sweet. Green light. Made the green light. Awesome sauce. Whoop. What's going on here? Dead car. Oh, I'm hungry. At least I don't have to spend money on dinner tonight and tomorrow. Somebody's gonna treat. Go up to Wilson. Hey, Linda. Or no, who is that? Tanoka. Hello. a big green thing and some more white things. Woo! Why is this car heater acting so weird? Must have a vacuum problem or something.
I'm Elsa Chang. And I'm Sarah McCammon. President Biden's international trip begins with trying to make amends with France over a defense deal with Australia.
What we did was clumsy. It was not done with a lot of grace.
Also, a trans woman in Kuwait is sentenced to 2 years in prison for, quote, impersonating the opposite sex.
This law is extremely muddy for that reason, so that trans women can be disproportionately targeted.
And a tradition that has continued since the Challenger space shuttle disaster, a bouquet of roses. Now news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The FDA is officially clearing kid-sized doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds than what teens and adults get. Data show the shots are nearly 91% effective at preventing symptomatic infection. On the eve of the G20 summit in Rome, President Biden's conceding he did not handle things as well as he could have with the U.S.'s oldest ally. France has said it was blindsided when the U.S. announced plans to enter into a security pact that cost France a major defense contract with Australia. Today, Biden sought to make amends.
What happened, to use an English phrase, what we did was clumsy. It was not done with a lot of grace. I was under the impression certain things had happened that hadn't happened.
France says it lost a major submarine deal with Australia after Canberra was promised classified data from the U.S. and the U.K. to develop nuclear-powered submarines. President Biden and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron spoke today about new ways to work together in the Indo-Pacific, where China's territorial aggression are of increasing concern to Washington. For the first time, a detainee at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, has testified publicly about CIA interrogation practices. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports on tactics that have been widely acknowledged as torture.
The Associated Press reports that Majid Khan, a Pakistani citizen and former resident of Baltimore, told a jury at his sentencing hearing that he was stripped naked, suspended from a beam, doused repeatedly with ice water to keep him awake, sexually assaulted, and waterboarded during the years he was held at secret CIA sites. Khan was moved to Guantanamo in 2006. He pleaded guilty in 2012 to murder and terrorism charges related to being an Al-Qaeda courier involved in planning several attacks in the U.S. that were never carried out. The enhanced interrogation tactics approved by the George W. Bush administration have been labeled torture by human rights organizations and acknowledged as such by U.S. officials. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger says he will not run for re-election. Here's NPR's Barbara Spratt.
The sixth-term congressman is a vocal critic of former President Donald Trump. He's one of 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach the former president in January, and the second of that group to announce they will not seek re-election. In doing so, Kinzinger lamented the lack of civility in politics and politicians' use of fear as a political strategy.
We've allowed leaders to reach power selling the false premise that strength comes from degrading others and dehumanizing those that look, act, or think differently than we do.
Kinzinger represents a Chicago area district that is expected to be redrawn by Democrats in the Illinois legislature. Barbara Spratt, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow closes the day up 89 points. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Raymond James, a firm focused on transforming lives, businesses, and communities through tailored wealth management, banking, and capital market solutions. Learn more at raymondjames.com.
At 4:04, it's All Things Considered from Idea Stream Public Media. I'm Tony Ganser. A state reports 363 more Ohioans have died in this COVID pandemic, the biggest reported number in at least 3 weeks. This brings the total death toll in Ohio to 24,500 lives lost. Local school board races are getting a lot of attention this off-year election. As of today, there were 2 open seats on the State Board of Education as 2 of 8 appointees resign. Governor Mike DeWine has appointed a corporate lawyer from Southwest Ohio and an official with the state's largest farmers group to replace them. Your State House Bureau Chief Karen Kessler.
Richard Terneski specializes in mergers and acquisitions and venture capital and is a longtime Republican donor. Brandon Kern is the State and National Policy Senior Director for the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. They replaced Board President Laura Kohler and member Eric Poplar, who resigned. The Senate confirms board appointments. Republican President Matt Huffman had said he was concerned about several issues in appointments, but first of all, what he called, quote, this diversity thing. The anti-racism resolution passed last summer, which emphasized equity and opportunity for students of color. It was supported by Kohler and Poplar. They also voted against rescinding it and replacing it this month with a resolution that promotes academic excellence without regard to race. Karen Kessler at the Ohio Public Radio State House News Bureau.
Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield will start Sunday against Pittsburgh, returning after missing a game with an injured left shoulder that will need management for the rest of the season. Mayfield practiced for a 3rd straight day, and Coach Kevin Stefanski said the 26-year-old will play.
Medically, he's ready to go. Our doctors, our trainers, the second opinions felt very comfortable about that. And, Baker's, he feels that he's ready, and he feels like he's ready to help his team win.
Mayfield didn't play last week in the win over Denver, ending his streak of 53 consecutive starts. This is WCPM.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Los Angeles.
And I'm Ari Shapiro in Washington. World leaders are gathering in Scotland for the next 2 weeks, and for the 26th time, they will try to chart a course on climate change and the fate of the planet. It's the UN Climate Summit. Scientists say to avoid catastrophe, countries need to set much more aggressive goals for limiting carbon
And we're
emissions.
here.
And we're going to talk now with our correspondents in 3 different countries that are major emitters about what's happening in China, India, and Brazil. Emily Feng is in Beijing, Lauren Freyer is in Mumbai, and Philip Reeves is in Rio de Janeiro. Good to have all 3 of you here.
Hi, Ari. Hi there.
Hi.
So to set the scene, 20 countries produce 80% of the world's carbon. So while everyone has a role to play, some countries have much bigger roles than others, and China is at the top of the list, the world's #1 carbon emitter. So Emily, what kind of commitment has China made going into this summit?
It has been hedging. It just released its pledges for COP26, and it's pretty much just a summary of its past pledges, which has really disappointed environmental advocates who were hoping China would come and make a big new commitment at Glasgow. Instead, China's sticking to its previously announced goals. It's going to hopefully reach peak emissions by 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2060, which is ambitious, but analysts were hoping that China would be
right
even
back.
more ambitious, that it could maybe even reach peak emissions by, say, 2025.
China is getting hit by climate change even now. Why?
planet.
Deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon hit the highest monthly level in a decade. An area the size of this city where I am now, Rio, was lost. However, Bolsonaro is under a lot of pressure over this, especially from big business interests, worried that this damages exports, and they're pushing for a change. So Brazil's public message in Glasgow will likely be one of cooperation.
Okay, so there's this divide between the kind of PR push and the actual policies. And recently there was a document leak where officials from India were seen lobbying to continue using coal. This was not supposed to have been made public. Lauren, do you get the sense that countries agree that the problem is as serious as scientists say it is?
Yeah, I mean, climate change denialism is not an issue here. I mean, just look out the window. Climate change is messing with the monsoon rains. That has huge consequences for the food supply here in India. Extreme heat is already hurting Indian productivity. Mumbai, where I'm sitting right now, may literally be underwater in decades. So there's no climate change denial here. But, I went to a coal depot last week. Workers were in abysmal conditions. India has the world's worst air pollution. These workers would love a clean energy job. But coal remains cheaper in India than renewables are. And poor countries like India are price sensitive.
Where am I going?
Let me bring in the U.S. role here, because the United States was the top carbon emitter for the 20th century. And so from where you sit in China, India, and Brazil, do you get a sense that other countries feel they should have a chance to do what the U.S. did before pivoting to a zero carbon future, even if scientists say you got to make the pivot now?
Yeah, so in India, there is a perception that the West wants to deny India and other low and middle income countries the right to develop quickly. But actually, India might be able to develop more sustainably than the U.S. did. I mean, Indians went, for example, from no phones to cell phones, so skip to the landlines. And it's something that economists call leapfrogging. So theoretically, Indians could go from no car to an electric car. India's not asking for decades to run, gas-guzzling cars. They're just asking a bit more time to make this incredible transition for nearly 1.4 billion people.
What about China, Emily?
China is struggling with a really complicated situation because it's one of the biggest carbon emitters.
Interesting. Car did surprisingly well.
Pope Francis, you are the most significant warrior for peace I've ever met.
Lei è il guerriero più forte per la pace che abbia mai incontrato.
And with your permission, I'd like to be able to give you a coin.
Biden is just the second Catholic U.S. president. He and Francis have both focused on many of the same key issues, including confronting climate change, as well as a global rise of nationalism and populism. Biden and Francis are also...
Turn right
This is a big old shopping center here called Richmond Town Center. It's getting like completely leveled and turned into apartments and townhouses, shops, I guess. Another planned community. But it's been dead as a mall for years. Only a couple buildings have anything going on. Oh, fart. What's today? Friday. Of course, this whack won't let me over. No. Gotta pull ahead of me. Oh.
Done. 4 more to go. Scott Detrow, NPR News, Ron.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
At 4:18, you're listening to Idea Stream Public Media. Now we'll look at headlines. The state reports 363 more Ohioans have died in this COVID pandemic, bringing the total death toll in Ohio to 24,500 lives lost. Meanwhile, other pandemic metrics still appear to be slowly improving. The state reported nearly 3,500 new confirmed and probable cases in the last day, compared to just over 3,800 for the 3-week daily average. Ohio has tested body cams for prison guards and is finalizing a contract for their use. State Prison Director Annette Chambers-Smith says the cameras can cover blind spots and act as a preemptive tool against violence. This is WCPN.
Support for Idea Stream Public Media is provided by The Olive Scene, where healthy cooking meets fresh flavor. Over 50 different extra virgin olive oils and balsamic vinegars. Recipes and videos online. The Olive Scene, in Chagrin Falls, Rocky River, Vermilion, and at theolivescene.com. NOPEC, a nonprofit organization that works with communities to help their residents and businesses reduce their utility bills. NOPEC negotiates lower electric and natural gas rates, which can help reduce energy costs for its members. NOPEC buys in bulk on behalf of its more than 240 member communities across 19 Ohio counties. More information and energy-saving tips can be found at nopec.org.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Zoom, used by 500,000 businesses. With a single platform for video, phone, chat, and conference rooms, Zoom enables real-time collaboration no matter where teams are located. Zoom, how the world connects. And from Klaviyo, working to help brands deliver personalized email and SMS campaigns that drive revenue and create genuine customer relationships at klaviyo.com/NPR.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang.
And I'm Sarah McCammon. Impersonating the opposite sex online. That is the charge that got Maha Al-Mutairi, a trans woman, sentenced to 2 years in Kuwaiti prison earlier this month. She's previously been arrested numerous times and alleges that on one instance in 2019, she was sexually assaulted by Kuwaiti officers. Today, she's once again in police custody as she awaits an appeals hearing scheduled for October 31st. Badria Al-Sabah is a Kuwaiti activist and research and policy fellow with the Massachusetts Commission on LGBTQ Youth. She joins us now to talk about Maha Al-Mutairi and the importance of her case for Kuwait's LGBTQ movement. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
To start with, would you just tell us a little bit about Maha Al-Mutairi and who she is?
So, Maha Al-Mutairi is a Kuwaiti citizen. She is 40 years old and she's a transgender woman. And she gained popularity across multiple social media platforms starting in 2014 and 2015.
And what does she mean to the LGBTQ community in Kuwait?
So Maha is something of an icon in the ways that her story has reached such a wide audience. She is someone who is living her life unapologetically within the constraints of a very, very difficult system. So she really does stand out as someone that the community looks to for inspiration and to support as well.
I want to talk about the case against her. What exactly are the laws that authorities accuse her of breaking?
So the specific articles of the Constitution that are being used against Maha criminalizes imitating the appearance of a member of the opposite sex, and this is within the group of restrictions on privacy and on a person's free choice of dress. There's also Article 70 of the Telecommunication Law, where a person who misuses telephone communications may be imprisoned for up to a year and fined about $7,000.
I understand you grew up in Kuwait. Is this a pervasive problem in Kuwait?
So I would say that it is a widespread problem in Kuwait, especially in terms of gender presentation. So one of the issues here is under this article of the Penal Code, there are no specifications. There is no criteria as to what is deemed imitating the opposite sex. It can be anything from appearing in what is deemed to be feminine attire, moving in a feminine way. So the criteria is really, really wide and completely up to the discretion of the police, and it's herein that the issue really lies.
Looking ahead to Maha Al-Mutairi's appeals hearing this weekend,
did I go the wrong way?
What are the possible outcomes there?
So there are a few possible outcomes when it comes to her hearing. There is a possibility that she will be imprisoned for 2 years. There's a possibility that the initial fine of about $3,300 can be increased. And there's also the possibility that she would be able to pay the fine and hopefully be released. What's actually quite interesting about all this is GID, which is gender identity disorder, is actually recognized by the Kuwaiti government. So her lawyer may try to weave in that rhetoric and that logic.
What is the larger significance of this case for LGBTQ people in Kuwait?
I think first and foremost, representation. There's someone who has been brave enough to come out unapologetically. So seeing the ways in which that is interacting with the laws of the land, I think is inspiring people to do more. I think also the international reach of this case, and for example, Human Rights Watch and other large orgs and agencies have picked this case up as one to act as both a warning and a nod to the future, in which hopefully some of these articles can be amended or even repealed to create a more livable society for queer people in the Middle East.
Badria Al-Sabah is a Kuwaiti activist and research and policy fellow with the Massachusetts Commission on...
That's pretty messed up. When will we ever become just human beings and just leave each other alone? But no. Alright, right back. messages. What is with this? This is terrible. Alright. I gotta see if I can fix this other app. Where is... I don't know where that phone is. Where is that phone at? What's going on now? I mean, honest. Oh, that's the phone. I'm looking for you. I'm in such a bad mood. I got problems. Alright. I'll be back. I gotta hang this up and see if I can fix another app. Got all kinds of stupid issues. I can't use it. Alright. Ciao.